Hello, Pile 1. Welcome. Before I talk about your message of comfort, I want to talk about how the spread is kind of broken up. Where this first half, which is this Oracle deck of Divination, and we'll get into that, and the first three tarot cards up here, that is a way for you to confirm that you've picked the right pile, and it's a way for me to understand the context around which your message of comfort is coming through. So it works both ways. It's for you and for me. Because this message, or rather, because of what this message is and for who it's really important that you really only take the messages if you are the person that we're talking about in this first part, where we're confirming who you are or who you were before all of this happened and what happened between you and this person. I want to emphasize that if you want to stay tuned in because you're listening to this first part and it's describing the person who has put you in heartache, and you're thinking, I want to stick around to see how things are going on their end, I would that don't do that. Go ahead and find another pile. I've done this reading before, so go and look at that one. Maybe there's something for you there. If you can't find a pile that's suitable for you this time around, I will continue to do this reading into the future, so hopefully you'll have more piles to choose from there as well. It's just, again, because of the way that it's coming through and really what the reading is, which is all about a salve for your heartache. It's counterproductive for you to keep on checking in energetically on the person who hurt you in the first place. You cannot seek an antidote from what poisoned you. So you need to go ahead and just move on from this space, because on the off chance that this is the reading for that specific person that put you in this place of heartache, you are disrespecting this space by intruding on it because this is their space of healing. So just go ahead and move on to the reading that's meant for you. Don't try to stick around if this isn't your pile. Anyways, my point is, if it's not your reading, go ahead and find another one. Now, like I kind of said before, or I don't even know if I've mentioned it already, but this first part of, well, honestly, no, the whole reading came through very clearly. So I don't know if I'm going to spend very much time on it. I will try to elaborate as much as I can, but it is coming through pretty clear cut. So to start with this first top half with these first two rows, the first row is the Divination Oracle, which takes characters, which is the center card. On the left we have different items, and then on the right we have different locations from different cartoon shows from like the 90s and like not even early 2000s, since it goes through like Steven Universe, so like the last 20-30 years. I don't know that it goes back there. The point is cartoon shows, and it's a way for, like, it's basically like archetypes, whatever. You got Fred from Scooby-Doo, the hotline from the Powerpuff Girls, and the walled city from Attack on Titan. I don't think the name is on here. Let me try to see. Oh yeah, Trust District. Okay. Side note, I've only watched the first episode of that show. Um I only didn't continue to watch it because just I'll watch it eventually. I just never got around to continue to watch it. But from what I understand, Trust District is the place that gets like invaded in the first episode. And they have these high walls to keep out like the enemies. That's irrelevant. That doesn't matter. I don't know why I'm talking about that. Maybe you like anime. I don't know. The point is, what I'm getting from these cards is that before you met this person, you were pretty confident. And that's going to range differently. I'm going to give different examples, but what I'm getting from all three cards together is a sense of attention that you were receiving, and giving. For some of you, it wasn't that you were giving a lot of attention. Maybe you were just at the receiving end of it and you were kind of just minding your business about things. But for some of you, you were not just receiving it, you were also giving a lot of attention. When I'm talking about attention, it's going to range on a spectrum as well, where On the one hand, it could just be like, you're very magnetic, so you draw a lot of attention to yourself. Maybe your personality is very bright, maybe you're very good looking, and so you just gain a lot of attention and you get a lot of romantic attention your way. On the other end of the spectrum, and both of these things could be true, you could be like all over the spectrum. It's more of like a physical thing. I'm trying to keep it like PG for YouTube, but like, you were having fun. You were having a lot of fun. And before I continue, no slut shaming here. This is a slut safe zone. It's a house of Venus, for crying out loud. Like, of course we're going to be cool with all of that. So like, no judgment here. Believe me, I am in no place to judge. The point is, we're not talking about me right now. You moved very confidently in the past. Before you met this person, there was this confidence in which you moved with through these like romantic endeavors. And romantic even feels a little generous, because there does seem to be this kind of like detachment, and detachment almost makes it sound dirty. Maybe some of you feel that way now, but like it doesn't come through that way. It was just this like safe understanding that for some of you, it was that like you knew that you just wanted to have fun, so you kept it just that way. For others of you, if you weren't taking it to a physical degree, it could just be like, it's nice to have attention, or even if you didn't like it, it was nothing ever more than that. So like romantic, I'm just calling it romantic in the sense of like, we're not, because this is a love reading, we're talking about love. So this goes beyond just platonic or like familial attention and love. This is talking about like people who you could potentially be with. So if just, again, you have to figure out where you landed on that spectrum. You would obviously know that. With Trust District, that wall, there's one thing I remember from that episode that I watched is this idea of like, those things will never break through the wall. And then they do very easily. This was years ago when I watched that episode, so I could be misremembering that. I'm so sorry. But to those of you who like that show and have watched it, I'm sorry. But this idea of I'll be fine. Like, you're going into your romantic endeavors completely confidently because so far you've known how to maneuver in a way that keeps you safe. Again, that's going to vary depending on who you are. Whether it's you keeping yourself safe was you just never engaging with those things and you just kind of like, okay, I'm getting attention, whatever. Or if you were actually like dating just for fun, then you were going into it knowing that you weren't going to get attached. You had like this set kind of boundary for yourself of what you wanted and what you were going to do in these endeavors. Because, and this is kind of like not so much, it's just something that's kind of coming through because of the way that the cards are laid out. And it's not so much relevant to the reading of, or this part of the reading of, well, I guess it kind of does. Okay. There's this thing coming through where if it's true for you that you had a lot of fun, you've had a lot of fun in your life, those partners of yours who have benefited from your experience really do feel that way, where you're really tuned in to the body and you know what feels good. You pay attention to what works and what doesn't to really create these experiences that are very memorable. So there's one comfort you can take in all of this is you make an experience. You create an experience, a very good experience. For those of you who know that's true, then you know that's true. If it's not, just leave that. But okay, to continue, again, before you met this person, to kind of like wrap up this first layer, there's a sense of confidence and this sense of, it doesn't feel like, because I almost want to call it cocky, but not cocky in the sense of, it's not misplaced. Like, it's a confidence because, it's something, like if you do the same thing every day, nothing's going to be like a surprise to you because it's like, it goes like this every time. Every time that I go like do this thing, it always goes this way. And so that's how you moved in these romantic endeavors. You just kind of like went into it and it's like, well, it always plays out the way that I want it to, or it, even if it doesn't, I end up being okay. So like, I'm going to be fine. There's this idea of you really, that, again, that confidence because you know things, you're going to be okay in the end. A big part of the rest of the reading, especially with like the Fool here in this next layer, and then spoiler alert later too, there really is this idea of the confidence came from a place of not seeing the full picture. It was kind of a naive confidence. And again, it doesn't come through as cocky where it's like malicious and, you were just kind of shoving your confidence in people's faces. It's not so much like that. It was just, again, because you knew how to keep yourself safe and you were doing things like detached, sort of, you knew you were moving confidently. That's kind of all I'm trying to say. So, to get into the next layer of what happened, we have the Fool with the Three of Swords reversed and then the Eight of Swords. Now, before I continue, I usually show the shuffle of the reading whenever I do these readings, and I try to time lapse it so that it's not so long, but at least so people can see that I'm shuffling the cards and just to create a trust. But then also, in case things happen during the shuffling process that might pertain to the reading. And for this particular reading, just because I wanted to get it out, I was kind of rushing through it. I decided to not record the shuffling process because then I could just get to the part where I'm just sitting down and talking about the reading faster and it's less to edit. I was trying to save myself time. And wouldn't you know it, this is the first reading that I decide to do that with. And something happens during the shuffling process where while I'm shuffling these cards right here, these tarot cards, the Eight of Swords actually flew out. And I pulled it out and I looked at it and I was like, okay, that was just my hand. My hand wasn't gripping onto the deck right. They are slippery cards. That was on me. And I put it back in the deck and then here it came out again. So now it just, if you have trust issues, I'm sorry. I'm not lying. You don't have to believe me. You don't have to take my word for it. But I will start to record the shuffling again because then it wouldn't be so suspicious. But it was just crazy how that came out and then here it is again. So the Eight of Swords, I want to start from there because the Eight of Swords is, in this particular reading, in this context, I'm getting it as restriction, self-control. There you go. Self-control. And that kind of plays a part with the first layer of who you were before you met this person, where, how I was saying, you moved in you moved in a way that you knew was going to keep you safe. And so that's this Eight of Swords energy that I'm getting, where it's, you knew what was appropriate for you to do and you knew what wasn't. You kind of kept very safe boundaries with the people that you engaged with to keep yourself safe. Now, I'll return to the Eight of Swords in a second because there's a lot to be said there, but I want to go back to the Fool before I continue. But that whole idea of restriction plays a big part in what happened between you and this person once you met this person. And how restriction really played a big theme in what happened and then what you've learned from that so far. So with the Fool, that was also partly where I was getting this idea of, it was a naive confidence where you just didn't know better. You didn't understand when you were engaging with this person, there were things that you were doing, there were things that you were saying that you didn't realize at that time were creating the circumstances that you now sit in. Spoiler alert, and we'll get to it in the next layer, but there's this idea of your hindsight's 2020, and because of the experiences that you've now gone through, you can think back on this experience with this person that we're talking about today and really see things, recognize things that you weren't able to recognize when you were going through those things with the person that we're talking about today. And so the Three of Swords coming up reversed was really interesting to me with the Fool, because one of the things that I always kind of comes to mind when I contemplate the Fool is how when the Fool comes up upwards, we're looking at the fool before he falls over the cliff. The fact that he's going to walk over the cliff is implied because he's not looking at where he's going, but we can sense that they're not slowing down in any way. And so they're about to fall over this cliff, but they haven't yet. And whether or not this card comes upwards or reversed, I always think about the idea of the fool falling. And when, cartoonishly, and like, if we think about it like in a more cartoonish sense or a more like fictional way, when someone is falling a long distance, I mean, in reality, they would just, not be around anymore. But like since it's all like symbolic, when this fool is falling, there's going to be a part during that fall when they're not upright, when they are like head over heels and everything looks upside down to them. We kind of see this depicted in the tower, where like usually in the classical interpretations of the tower, one of the figures is upside down as they're falling because they're just falling, and so they're like rolling around as they're falling in physics, and now their head is they're upside down. And so why I'm pointing that out and is how the Three of Swords reversed is here at the center of the part of the spread that's talking about what went on between you and this person that we're talking about today. And what I see that as, next to the Fool, which is a card about like not knowing things yet, the Three of Swords lets me know that like there was a lot of heartache that you weren't seeing when you were engaging with this person. Again, this is going to vary differently for all of you. Whether this heartache was heartache for you, or this heartache was for the other person that you were engaging with. Now, for some of you, like it really was just on your part. Like you were acting, moving in ways in this relationship that you now feel that heartbreak over. Or like both could be true, but then, it could just be this first part where it was just on your part. But like, or you now recognize that like the ways that you were moving in the past with this person did create heartbreak for them as well. And you couldn't see that at the time. The Eight of Swords, then, to return back to the Eight of Swords here, because there came to be a point where you recognized what was going on. What you recognized was that you were actually developing feelings for this person. And so you reacted as someone who has kept yourself safe this far, might, where you felt uncomfortable because things weren't going the way that you were used to. Again, to return to that first part where, you were moving confidently in these endeavors because, you always turned up fine. You knew how to move in them. You knew how to keep yourself safe. And then in comes this person that has you feeling differently and has you, thinking about them more than you're used to. And you're not quite ready to accept the fact that you might actually have feelings for a person, for this individual. And so then comes this restriction, this self-control, where you started to move in ways that it's like, wait, no, I need to get myself back online. I need to like keep myself safe. And so you started to move in ways that kept yourself safe and started to impose restrictions, not only on the union between the two of you, but on yourself as well. That'll vary differently for all of you, where it was just like you completely ghosted this person, or you stopped seeing them as much, you stopped giving them as much attention. And again, that like idea of restriction. Now, okay, to kind of paraphrase, you were moving before you met this person, moving confidently, you were moving safe, you had like you've always been fine, so you're going to be fine. And so when you met this person, you moved into it with confidence, the confidence that you had gained because of your past experiences, the confidence that you knew you were going to be all right, as you always were and are. But then when you recognized that things, you were actually feeling things and that things were starting to get a little bit deeper, a little bit messier than you were used to, you reacted in a way that started to, you began to impose restrictions on yourself in the union. And it started to create this disharmony between the two of you. Okay, before I continue to the part of comfort for you, I want to spend a little bit of time talking about the Three of Swords reversed and the Eight of Swords upwards had like this combination of cards and what I'm kind of getting from them. Because again, the Three of Swords reversed to me in this reading is coming through as this heartbreak that you were creating that you couldn't see. And the Eight of Swords being this idea of like restriction. This is, I don't know if this isn't true for you, it isn't true for you. But for some of you, what this reveals to me is that the way that you moved, even before you met this person, this idea of you moving in confidence because of that detachment. And then even with this individual, where you were moving the way that you were moving, and then when you realize things, those restrictions that you imposed to keep yourself safe, all of that is a result of some type of heartbreak. Now, isn't that true for all of us? Can't we all root some type of problem that we have to some initial heartbreak? Yes, that's going to be true for all of us. But what I'm trying to point out here is how that heartache, not the one that we're talking about in this specific reading that was created between you and this individual, the heartache that you carry with you even before you met this person, the heartache that forced you to create these restrictions for yourself in the first place to keep yourself safe, the heartache that taught you that there was things that you needed to keep yourself safe from in the first place. You were blind to how much that heartache was controlling you, how much that heartache was creating restrictions for you, because that heartache was having you move in ways that was restricting you and what you had access to. What I'm kind of, a good example that I'm kind of giving you, and it might be extreme, but just go with me because I'm trying to just be clear about the example, is like, what are they called? Agoraphobics, like people who are afraid of going outside. And if that's not the word for it, what I'm talking about is that like genuine fear that people have of going outside and like the outside world and people outside. I mean, it's very clear. Like we as people, and I'm so sorry if you're agoraphobic and I'm touching on a trigger here. Please click off if this is too much. I'm just using it as an example, and maybe it's instead of sorry. But like, for those of us who are not agoraphobic and who are not afraid of going outside, to think about that, to see someone who's afraid of coming into the outside world, we can see that they are missing out on what's going on outside. Now, the world, there could be some arguments made that, they're not missing out on much because it's much safer inside. But that you can have that knowledge confidently because you're out here engaging in the real world and then going back to the inside to recover. Now, that's not my point being that that fear is restricting that individual from participating in life outside of the four walls of their home. And so that's what I'm trying to point out here, where your fear of heartbreak, whether it's a repetition of it in the past or just you not wanting to experience it, you weren't recognizing how much that fear was controlling you and again restricting the way that you were moving, especially with this individual. And so what happened between the two of you is the whole point, maybe not the whole point of it, but part of why this happened, if you want to look at this relationship through a lens of why did this happen to me? Why did fate have this for me in store? It's because it was trying to point that out to you, how you could have had something good with this individual, but because you were so afraid, you moved in ways that reflected that fear, and then it cut off access to that individual. And so, okay. This is kind of what I was meant when I said that if this isn't for you, you'll know, because this part is coming through so clearly, and it's for a specific type of individual. So, okay, if this is you, if that resonates with you, cool. I mean, not cool, that sucks. Sorry, bro. But cool in the sense that you're in the right place and I can now deliver this message of comfort for you during this heartache. And so now we move into this next layer where we do have the Fool again, but now reversed. And so kind of like I was talking about earlier, I'm not looking at the Fool reversed here as a blocking of the Fool energy so much as I'm seeing it as how I was talking about earlier, where now you're in the fall. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be now per se. It's very likely that you already experienced the fall. And so like the Fool upside down is I'm seeing the Fool character that we see in the first layer, you moving into that. I don't even want to call it like if it was a relationship, cool, but like that connection with the person that we're talking about. You moved into that with that like confidence that you had carried with you before. And so after that went down, then you experienced the fall. And that's why I'm seeing the Fool reverse, because it's like that's you during the fall, you know, as you're tumbling and now you're upside down during that descent. And in that reversed state of that fall, now you can see that heartache that we're talking about with the Three of Swords reverse in that first layer. Now you can see that reversal. You see that heartache clearly. You see that in the past now, because that's in the past. But you can now recognize, like, you know, the way that I was moving created the circumstances that ended what was there. And, you know, it takes two, you know, you all know how much you played a part in it, whether it was entirely your fault or not. We continue. Another thing that has been made accessible to you because of this fall is the energy of the Lovers, which is also coming up reversed right next to the Fool reversed. And what I'm getting from the Lovers in this reversed state, where you can really only see this clarity as you're experiencing this fall, what I'm kind of getting from that is, again, this idea that I've been talking about so far, I got it from these two cards, where because of the experiences you've had, because of what's happened since things ended with this person, you can now recognize things differently. You recognize things that you weren't able to recognize before. You've learned a lot about love and what it means to be what it means to build a successful relationship. And even if that's not true, even if you feel like you haven't yet learned how to build a successful relationship, part of the message, one of the messages of comfort for you is then that this experience is to serve you as what not to do, what results you'll get if you continue to move in the ways that reflect that fear, and that if you continue to hold those restrictions that are dictated by your fear of heartbreak. Because the thing is, heartbreak is always going to be a possibility no matter what. To have a heart that is functional means that you are going to feel the discomfort of heartbreak, because there is a lot of heartbreak to go around, even beyond love, even beyond romance. Just to take a look at the news as a person with the capacity for love for even like 10 seconds is enough to kind of have you sit down and kind of rethink some things. And so like the fear of heartbreak is true at a human level across the board. We're all afraid of that. But that's not what we were talking about with those, you know, with what I was talking about earlier, where like, you know, your fear of heartbreak was creating restrictions for you. And so again, the Lovers reversed here next to the Fool reversed is what you've learned about love, about relationship building. And you need to understand the Queen of Cups here is kind of saying that all of this is what's gone on, and the heartbreak that you're experiencing now are the building blocks of your wisdom. Not to say that they are like the entirety of your wisdom, because obviously there are so many aspects of life to draw wisdom from, but in essence, the salve, the comfort for you during all of this is you've learned. And if you feel like you haven't yet, you have the capacity to, because this is meant to serve you as emotional intelligence, emotional experience for you to take with you into future endeavors, and for these things to inform the decisions that you are going to make in future romantic endeavors. That might not feel like the best salve, especially if like the heartbreak is raw, or if you are still feeling a little fresh about this particular individual and you feel like you want to repair things with them. I'm not going to lie to you, it doesn't feel like it's in the cards for you, especially with the Lovers reversed coming out at the smack center of the reading. This person very well might have moved on, or they're just not available to you anymore. And even if the cards are basically saying that right now is a time of hermitude. You probably already know that. For the majority of you, it really does feel like you've been on that like solitude, and that's where you're able to look at things back clearly, and that hindsight 2020 thing where it's like, okay, I spent time contemplating these things, and that's why I'm able to see these things, and that's why I'm feeling this discomfort and this heartache, because I'm thinking back on those things, and I can see now how I was acting, and again, how I was creating the circumstances that led to what happened. And if you haven't gotten there yet, then again, that's kind of what the cards are pointing out, where like, then start on that journey. Start on the process of sitting down and taking the time to spending more time thinking back on what happened between you and this person that you feel hurt over, and really chew on it to understand how the part that you played in it. Again, if it takes two to tango, and if they played a part in it, really, it's going to vary for all of you, where if they played a part in it, you need to give that its due. But for the most part, it really is just about you paying attention to the part that you played first. Really getting a grasp on that, and then moving on from there. You'll know at the end of that if you also need to take in stride what they did. Because if you've dealt with your stuff and you're still feeling raw about it, then you might need to sit with what they did too, and you need to deal with that. But, that's for another reading. We're not talking about that today. Your task is to keep your part of the lot clean. And basically, in this reading, it's basically addressing the part that you played in the downfall of this relationship, but also in the downfall of any other relationships that you can now recognize you played a part in. Whether it was like, individual relationships, like if it wasn't just this individual that we're talking about today, and maybe it's many, like not many, maybe it is many, I don't know. But like if it was like more than one, it's not just about that. It's not just about the ways that you were moving. If it was like with that one person, then with that one person. If it was multiple people, then like with those people that you considered special. It's not just about that. It is also about what we were picking up on in that first part, where you were moving in a way that kept you safe. You were moving in a way that you knew would generate the best results for you. And so we're also talking about that, where you've learned that it's not that you can't just do that, because you can. You absolutely can go and just have fun, be detached, and that's its own good thing. But rather, you've now learned that it's not always that you can't expect for you to have total control over your feelings all the time. And you now know that sometimes you can go into it something completely expecting that you're going to be fine and end up fucked up anyway. And so even that is part of the wisdom that you're meant to take from all of this. Even though it hurts, even though it sucks, it's like, now you're going to think twice before just stepping into something naively. You're going to, weigh your risks, or whatever it is that you're going to take from this. Part of the salve is, again, that wisdom that you're meant to take from this. Now, that might not feel like much right now. And maybe it does, because, again, for some of you, you're at kind of like, you're already at that part of the journey where you do understand this as wisdom, and you do recognize the ways that all of this has made you more emotionally intelligent. And I'm not talking to you right now. I'm talking more to those of you who feel like you're more at the beginning of that journey and don't really feel like you've gotten any results from any of this heartache. The point of this, the comfort here then for you, is that it's promised to you. If you do the work to actually contemplate and stare at these things as honestly as you can, and again, accept your role in the matter to your full capacity. And then not only accepting that discomfort, but then learning from it. Allowing yourself to recognize your mistakes and then move forward in future romantic endeavors, allowing yourself to be informed by these past mistakes so that you don't continue them in the future. So then that's why I'm saying it's not just about like informing romantic endeavors, but it's about allowing it to inform the way that you move. So for some of you, it's like, you are going to return to that place of dating and just moving, having fun, and not being too attached. And if that's your truth, cool, then what's being said for you is like, take what's happened and then understand that this is something that can happen when you're kind of just moving the way that you are. And that, if that's what you want to sign up for, cool. Because then next time you also maybe will have better luck because of what's happened here, and you kind of know what not to do once love comes knocking for you again. Now, for others of you who, you don't want to go back to that, but want to start taking things a little more seriously, then again, pretty much what this whole reading has been, where, okay, cool, take everything that's happened and everything that you've learned from it and apply it in these future romantic endeavors. Now, for the rest of you who are feeling like, you've been knocked off the horse and you're a little scared to get back on that horse, fair and valid, totally real, take all the time that you need. But don't use your whole life waiting for that. Like, the point is to get back on the horse. The whole, like, kind of that example that I was saying earlier with, like, people who are afraid to go outside, like, at some point you're gonna have to go outside to experience the things that you want to experience. And so part of the comfort here is, and it might not feel very comfortable, and I'm talking specifically to those of you who are feeling afraid to get back on the horse, part of the comfort is that, like, if you do your part to look at all of this honestly and accept it for what it is and, work on it, you will get to a point where you do feel confident enough to get back on that horse. But it is going to take, again, that, like, work and you facing things as they were. To move into the last part of the reading, which is in essence just a word of wisdom on, like, kind of where to move next. Basically, like, if you want to continue, if you want to build off of, like, the message of comfort that's coming through here, which is, again, this idea of taking what you've learned here and alchemizing it into emotional maturity, emotional intelligence, emotional wisdom, then the best thing that you can do right now to serve that endeavor and to serve that hope is to really hone in and hold on to the relationships around you, not just romantic, all relationships around you that you recognize as genuinely valuable, genuinely loyal. You really want to hone in on those things, recognize them, hold on to them, and really cut off any other excessive relationships. This is, again, going to be at varying degrees for all of you, where for some of you, like, you maybe have, like, too many friends, quote unquote friends. And I'm not saying to stop being a friendly person. Like, it really is nice to be a friendly person and have friends everywhere that you go. I'm not saying stop being that, but maybe that there are some people in your life that you need to cut off. Then that's what we're talking about here. The point of these three cards here at the bottom with dog, fish, and scythe is that you need to cut off the excess. And you'll know what that means for your specific situation. For others of you, it's for that part, like that party that I was talking about earlier when I was talking about who that second row applies to, where, for some of you, it's because you're afraid to get on the horse. For some of you, it's because you're ready to get back on the horse and you're going to take these things on. But for that first part of you, the first party where it's like, it's not that you want to get back into, you're not looking for anything serious in the future. This happened, but you're ready to get back to where you were before when you were kind of just having fun. For some of you, this message here at the bottom is like, you need to start to understand that that's not for your benefit. Yes, there might be times when that is appropriate. You might end up at a period of time later down the line where that might be okay, but right now is definitely not the time for you to seek out solace physically with as many people as possible. That message, again, is specifically for those of you who are using physical attention, and again, I'm keeping things PG. You're using fun as some type of crutch, and you need to recognize that for what it is, and you need to cut that off. And what can help you to do that is to start to seek comfort from the genuine relationships in your life. Start to understand that there is a deeper fulfillment to be gained from deep relationships, real relationships, that you just cannot get from the physical satisfaction that you gain from these surface level connections that you're hoping to continue to build. Again, that's a specific message for specific those of you. Don't take that if it doesn't apply. But for all of you, it's again cutting away any excess. Now, uh, so excess I was kind of saying here as like an abundance of, but then I just heard that as like exes, like people from your past. Take that if it applies. Maybe you need to be cutting off some exes that you have no business canoodling with. Now, for those of you who you don't have a lot of relationships and, you're not, you do have the solid relationships that you can hone in on, but you don't have like all these excess relationships that like you feel you need to be cutting off. Then the message for you is still applies of like, hone in on the good relationships in your life and recognize that the abundance that is available there. That's definitely something that's coming through across the board for all of you. Now, last little bit message, this is going to apply for some of you. It's really applying that cutting off the excess message to whatever it applies. Maybe it's not fun that you're using as a crutch. Maybe there are other things that you're doing in excess that you feel deep down you really should be rolling back on, you really should be doing less of. This is a confirmation of that feeling. It really is time to roll back on that. It really is time to cut off whatever you're doing in excess. Again, take it as it applies. Don't take it if it doesn't. My friend, this has been one hell of a reading, one hell of a ride. Hugs, kisses. Really, like, I really hope that in no part I came off as judgmental, because I wasn't trying to be. Because we're all where we're at. We all do what we do, and we're all human at the end of the day. And it is my hope that I create a safe space for whoever comes here. So, yeah. Allow me, like, the reading's over. Just allow me, from human to human, allow me to take a second to congratulate you on your capacity to take on your heartbreak and not be broken by it, but instead be willing to learn from it, to alchemize from it. Even if you feel like you haven't yet, the cards really pointed to your capacity for it. So trust in that. Trust in the capacity that you have to hold on to hope and to look for what you can learn from any experience beyond just romantic and beyond just this heartbreak that you're feeling now. Understand that really is a gift that you have, that you can look at any experience that you have and see what you can gain from it. My friend, I really, really hope that this helped. I wish you Godspeed on all of your endeavors, and I hope to catch you back here again sometime. Bye. Hello, Pile 2, and welcome to this reading on what salve and comfort there is for you at this time of heartache. Before we begin, I want to get into the way that the spread is kind of broken down, because it is basically two halves. The first half would be a way for you to confirm that you've picked the right pile, but then it's also a way for me to understand the context around which your message of comfort is being delivered through. So it kind of works both ways. Like, so you can understand, so you can rather confirm that you've picked the right pile, and then a way for me to better understand, and then better articulate the message that's coming through to like comfort you, basically. And that would be the next row. The next three cards would be that message of comfort. And then the last row would be basically the best thing that you can do on the road to recovery for you, basically. So to get into it, the first three cards you have here, I'm using an oracle deck. It's called the Divination deck, which uses characters, objects, and locations from different cartoons from the last like 20-30 years or so. And so you got Marceline from Adventure Time, Shattering Robinoids from Steven Universe, and the Ed, and Eddie cul-de-sac. Now, it doesn't matter if you've watched these shows or not, because I'm the one reading them, basically. But what I'm getting from these, I'm getting two separate things from them. Both of these things could be true for you. That would be, like a double whammy confirmation for you there. But it's okay if only one of these is true. The first is that you grew up very sheltered. And I'm kind of, the way it's coming through is like very, like, your parents or whoever took care of you were like, I almost want to say on top of you. Like, they really made sure that you were where you were supposed to be. You were doing what you were supposed to be. That's going to range on like different degrees for how intense that was. Um, and how you feel about it. Whether, you recognize that it was a problem and like that was way too restricting, or whether, to a best case scenario, you recognize that it like did serve you well to have like someone look out for you that way. The point is, there's this recognition of being very closely watched, and then also being part of this tight knit community where everybody kind of knows each other, and so anything that you did was under scrutiny. Whether this is like a family like unit that was very tight knit, or just everybody was in each other's business, or something like a small like town or a small community neighborhood, maybe even like a church, things like that where people commune and everybody's in each other's business. So that could be like one thing that I'm kind of getting from these three cards. Another thing that I want to mention, and this is going to be true for everybody here, the lore, the backstory that you have is pretty intense. You probably have 1,000 stories to tell about the way that you grew up and the way that things have kind of panned out for you, and how those things have resulted in who you are today. And I think, again, because this part of the reading is answering the question of who you were before all of this happened, it's like that was true even before all of this crazy shit went down. So to get into the second thing that I was kind of getting from these three cards, if what I've been saying so far does not apply to you, it could be that in some way, shape, or form, who you were before all of this happened was someone who, and you kind of, it's not that you cared what people thought, but rather it meant something to you to like be like in trend, or be like, maybe you cared what your family thought, or you wanted to like make everyone happy, and to some degree where you were really paying attention to the reactions of someone or people around you, and you were making decisions based off of those reactions. And in addition to that, this understanding of kind of like sheltered, but if not in the home, just this idea of you stayed in, because cul-de-sac is kind of giving me this idea of staying in what's comfortable for you or to you. So whether that means like you've just up until that point you had only ever lived in the same town, and if it wasn't that, like you were a creature of habit, or are a creature of habit, someone who you kind of always stick to the same things that you do all the time, and you don't really stray from that in any way, shape, or form. Now, if that's still true now, that's something that I wouldn't know. But again, that's just answering the question. These three cards are answering the question of who you were before all of this happened. So if that's true for you, hey, welcome, you're in the right place. The next three cards would then be further confirmation for you, basically. Because what's being said by what happened between the two of you, we have three reversed cards, and these three reversed cards, two of them are cups cards, and then we have one major. So that we have a major at all tells me that what happened between the two of you played a significant role in your development, and you recognize it as a really big part of your life and your life story. Now, this is being said after what I talked about, where before this happened, you already had crazy backstory. You count what happened between you and this person as yet another tale in your long list of stories that you have to tell. You count it as like just another thing that happened. Maybe not just another thing that happened to you, but maybe that's the way that you feel about it, where it's like, hey, that's just another thing that's happened to me. To get into the cards that you got specifically, because we have the Seven of Cups, the Fool, and the Four of Cups. Again, all reversed. That they're all reversed, I'm seeing Cups cards reversed always kind of bring the image of the contents of a cup being spilled. And so you have all of these cups which, were filled with water, with emotion, now being all spilled out. And so kind of what I'm kind of seeing with these cards is you invested a lot of emotion into what happened not invested a lot into the relationship that you were building with this person. And it's very likely that you can recognize that they, to some degree, did invest emotionally too, whether they admitted that to you or not, or how serious things were between you. That's going to vary between all of you. For most of you, I am kind of getting that it was a committed, serious thing, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. The point is that you also recognize, and I don't know when you recognized this, whether it was like very early on you were aware of this, or you became aware of it like sometime after, but while you guys were still together, or if you only became aware of it after the fact, like hindsight's 2020. The point is that at some point you recognize that you fell hard. Like, I'm trying to remember this quote that I read once. It was so good. It was kind of like this quote of like, I fell for her like rain does all at once. Like, I don't know, this idea of, when you really fall for someone, you recognize that you kind of like, they call it kind of being stupid in love, where it's not necessary to like, not necessarily that phrase. And I'm not trying to say that you were stupid. That's not the point at all. It's just, there's this recognition of you at some point came to understand that like, you were kind of out of your senses a little bit where this individual was concerned. And whether it was in that sense of like what we're calling stupid love, where you were just, acting a little bit of a fool, or whether it was just a recognition of you made a lot of mistakes. You ignored a lot of red flags. It's just going to vary. Okay. But again, there was a recognition that you weren't making the best decisions. And again, it's going to vary whether you recognize that early on and you just kept on making excuses for yourself and that individual to continue this relationship, or whether you recognize that sometime in the middle of it and then you were in retrospect like taking account of all of the things that you had kind of ignored and all of the things that you had kind of accepted, or whether it was after the fact when things were over and you were able to look at it clearly because you weren't in the throes of it with that person. And you came to recognize like, wow, I did make a lot of mistakes. I can, I can now see kind of the part that I played in where I'm at today, basically. Another thing that's coming through with these cards is, I don't know if this is going to be true for all of you, but this understanding that what you both were coming into this relationship very differently in terms of expectations and the ways that you guys were engaging in the relationship, where it really feels that on your part, you were coming into it with this almost innocent, dare I say, naive look at expectation of the relationship between the two of you. You were very likely planning a future with this individual, and having that like traditional expectation. This is especially going to be true if the first three cards rang true in that second interpretation, where I was talking about you like the tradition. I didn't word it this way, but like allow me to word it this way now. Like there was an appeal in tradition for you. Like it really appealed to you, the traditional ideals, and I would even say maybe like a little conservative. In terms of like your expectations, maybe not even just with romance, but like in general. And so you were coming into this relationship from that place where it's like, I'm looking for my partner. I'm looking for someone to settle down with. I'm looking for someone that I can safely invest emotionally in. And the way that these cards are kind of playing out is that this individual, now you can see that this individual was, one, not putting in as much as you were, but also that they had, okay, it's good. Again, it's good, different things where it's either that they maybe at first or maybe throughout the whole thing we're just looking at it through like a physical aspect, or maybe just not as deep emotionally as you were. On the other end, it was kind of like you realized in through whatever means that this individual is not at all who you thought that they were, that they've done things, that they're capable of doing things you really never thought this person was ever going to be capable of doing. And that kind of really, I don't want to say it broke you or anything, but it really, it clearly showed you how little you knew, not only about this individual, but about like people and what they're capable of. And so that's why this is such a big thing in your life, is because it really showed you, it really taught you a lot about not just love and romance and relationships and, red flags to look out for, but also what an individual is capable of. So something really happened there where, again, all of these spilled cups, that spilled water energy, it also comes like, it brings to mind a lot of tears. Like, this is something that really hurt you. Whatever it is that this individual did, whether it was something that you were directly victimized by, something like cheating or anything worse. I don't even want to word it. Or maybe it's just something that like you heard that they did to someone else, so you weren't directly a victim of it, but it's just like, how could the person that I saw as this like sweet angel or whatever you saw them as be capable of something so horrendous and atrocious? And it really just like, what? Like, it really just, how could that even be possible? It's just something that you couldn't really like wrap your mind around. And so this whole experience that you've been having is one that is not only the reckoning and acceptance of what went on with that individual and what you need to accept about them, but then also the reckoning and confusion that comes from, what do I really know? Like, I had this whole worldview before all of this happened, and it showed me that like, I don't ever, like, do you ever really know someone? Like, can you really trust? And so it's really widened your scope of perspective in terms of where you were before all of this happened. Yeah. I think that is all I have to say about... Okay, wait, yeah, no. There is one last thing that's kind of coming through. And I guess it kind of could be a different way of wording what I've been saying. But another thing that's coming through with these three cards altogether is this understanding that you have, whether you can see it clearly or not, or like the point is you're going to, is that in order to be in this relationship successfully, does, like, it kind of opened your eyes to the way that people operate in order to facilitate certain relationships, or like, it kind of opened your eyes to what it takes in order to participate in that type of relationship, and that you're not willing to engage with that type of behavior you're not willing to pay the price. You're not willing to do what it takes in order to maintain that type of relationship, even if others are telling you that that's what you should be doing, or it may be like part of it is that you've seen other people like also turn a blind eye, and so you've normalized it, or you've thought that that was okay, or maybe you didn't see that before, but now that you've gone through this, you're looking at some relationships around you and you're recognizing how they, like you, are turning a blind eye to certain things, and it's like, oh, this is happening, kind of like it's again opened your eyes to recognizing what people are willing to not only do, but what they're willing to accept from other people, in order to, like, in some cases, just keep a relationship going. Well, actually, no, let me word it like what people are willing to do in order to keep relationships going, whether romantic or not. Because sometimes it's not just our romantic relationships that like will like, I don't want to say we, because I don't want to include myself with those people, but just willing to do whatever it takes to just stay with that person, to keep that one person. Like, even to their detriment, like even beyond their detriment. And like, you coming to recognize, or you do recognize that it's just like, yeah, I'm not willing to do that. That's just not something that is for me. Even if it means that I gotta be alone. Or even if you don't take that sentence, it's like you're just like, there is someone out there for me who like will not make me feel like this, and whatever it is, like there's this recognition of, yeah, that's not for me. Not only this relationship, but just like that idea of, just, it's okay, just turn a blind eye, like it, just accept that about him. That's just who they are. That's just who this person is. Like, just accept that about them. And you're just like, yeah, no, that's not something that I'm willing to do. But yeah, okay, I think that's all that I was getting from these cards. Yeah, okay. So, if that is true for you, obviously, again, welcome to your reading. To get into the message of comfort for you, the salve, the medicine that is available for you at this time, the Seven of Swords upwards with the Four of Wands reversed and the High Priestess reversed. The symmetry of having the spilled cups of the Seven of Cups right above this upwards Seven of Swords. That transition, because we're keeping we're transitioning seven energy from cups to swords. So this, I'm seeing it as, because cups are emotion and swords are the mind. Part of the medicine for you, and this is, I'm starting to understand, and I'm sure you have to, if you're like listening to tarot readings, I'm sure you're starting to understand that like a big part of gaining wisdom is learning how to alchemize all of our experiences into data that we can use to inform our future decisions. Not just letting the pain be just pain that hurts us, but rather taking what we can from it, learning what we can from it, and then avoiding certain things so that we don't experience this again. And then, best case scenario, trying new things or things that work to gain you better results. And so this idea of taking the spilled cups energy and then turning it into data, transitioning it from cups energy to swords energy, taking all of these experiences and using it as data, which, given what we've been talking about before, where like even before all of this happened, you've been through a lot. You already kind of know that's the deal. You go through a lot, you learn a lot. It really helps you to understand people and move through life in a way that people with the privilege of not knowing such intense experiences kind of will never know, and will never have access to. So this is just part of that, where it was meant to teach you things, it was meant to show you things, it was definitely meant to give, again, kind of how I worded it earlier, like widen your perspective, widen your scope of understanding. The Four of Wands reversed is confirming to you that this was definitely not the person to build a life with. If you in any way, shape, or form feel like, no, but they were a good person, like despite what happened, I don't know what, like maybe I don't know where you're at, okay? Like maybe, they did do something atrocious. You do recognize that this is something that was just like, whoa. But like maybe you're just the type of person who has a very big heart and you see it in yourself to forgive this person. No. These cards are saying, actually, no, this person is actually what you see them as. Don't extend too much sympathy for them. This was never meant to be someone that you were meant to build anything with. This was just meant to be an experience. I don't want to say just meant to be an experience for you to learn from, because it kind of feels like, oh, like, I don't mean to devalue or dismiss the feelings that you're going through. Absolutely not. But it's the Four of Wands reversed, because the Four of Wands upwards is like the four walls of a home being put up successfully. In a lot of interpretations, the Four of Wands is looked at as a wedding ceremony or some type of celebration, people coming together to celebrate something. So that was something that was never in the cards for you, between you and this person. Even if you had that with them, even if you had married this person and now you're divorced, even if you had successful social like gatherings with this person, the point is that there are people in this world that your energy is going to like be able to build with, and then there are people who you are not meant to build with, and this person falls into that category of people where they're just, as much as you might care for them, as much as you might have loved them, as much as you might still love them, the cards the universe is basically confirming to you that this was not someone that was you were meant to build with. The high priestess is also kind of saying that engaging with this relationship, with this type of relationship, both of those things, engaging with this specific relationship, but then also this type of relationship, if the way that you engage with this individual is the way that you engage with other relationships in your life, romantic or not, it that type of relationship demands that you, the word that's coming through is douse your intuition. And douse, if I'm not mistaken, dousing is when you put out a flame, right? Like a candle flame, like that's dousing, right? I know that there's also like dowsing rods and that's something else, but like, right? That's what that means. And so kind of the way I'm kind of seeing it in my head is like your intuition, your instinct, or if it's not those things, then even just like your internal knowing, which is instinct and intuition, but however you see it, there is a part of you that recognizes that there is a part of you that kind of knows things, and engaging with this person really demanded that you not pay attention to that. How we were saying earlier, that you either made a lot of excuses, or you turned a blind eye, or you just weren't able to recognize the red flags that were there because you didn't, again, you were going into it like not almost innocently. And so you weren't looking for those red flags because you just, oh, well, this is my partner. He's all good. I know him to be good because he's good to you. And so the high priestess reverse is like there's this inner knowing that was very blocked. And so the message of comfort here, although it might not feel like one, is one that you do have a good inner knowing, a sharp inner knowing, a sharp instinct, a sharp intuition. But that also you're not crazy. That there were times that you knew deep down that this person had done something or that they were lying about something, and they, like, as a liar does, gaslights you into be like, no, like I would never do that, or that's not what I did, but you knew deep down that yes, I know that you did, even if you didn't have the evidence, or even if you did, and they still gaslight you. Like the high priestess reverse is saying, this relationship actually, there were times where you were right, you were on the money, and that truth was hidden from you, or in some way, shape, or form, whether it was you hiding it from yourself, turning a blind eye, or that individual, maybe even other people helping that individual. And if not other people helping that individual, then like it wasn't just with this person that you were turning a blind eye to things. It was also in other places. You were like just making excuses or ignoring red flags, or just not capable of seeing the wrong things that were going on in this relationship and or other relationships as well. And so that also being part of the message with the Seven of Swords, where all of this is, it was meant to really show you and teach you things. It's not that it's just meant to be data. That's valuable. To be able to go into anything and learn from it, that is value, that is intelligence, that is wisdom being built. And so that's the salve, that's the medicine, is that although you might not feel up to it right now, and I don't know where you're at on your journey with the heartache, whether it's fresh and, maybe right now isn't, it's okay if right now you don't feel up to starting to alchemize all of this into data. The point of this message is that, like, when you're ready, that's the work that's laid out for you in order for you to start that road to recovery. Like, if you want to, whenever you're ready to start on that road to recovery, these would be your first steps. If you are kind of in the middle of that healing process, this should be kind of like a confirmation and maybe even a nudge in the next, on your next steps on where to take the journey that you're on towards recovery. And if you're kind of towards the end of it and you're kind of just like seeing things in retrospect, you might be at that point where you're like in hindsight's 2020 and you're seeing things clearly now, and this reading might help you to kind of like confirm and affirm things that the conclusions that you've come to on your own. So yeah, again, it's going to apply differently to whoever's listening. Yeah, I think that's all I have to say about that. To close out with the last three cards of what the best thing that you can do now to really build on recovery, to really like these last three cards, these last three cards are basically answering the question of the best thing that you can do right now to aid you on your road to recovery. And so to talk a little bit about the deck itself, it is a Lenormand deck that an artist made out of their character. This is Helga. I can never remember if it's Hilda or Helga. I think it's Hilda, actually. If it matters, it will be in the description. The decks that I use, it will be there. But it's the same character in all of these cards. And because, I don't know if it was like the artist only had so many art pieces and therefore they like used different names for certain cards. The point is that Pumpkins here is this deck's version of Lenormand's Cross. But Ryder and Lily are the same in every Lenormand deck. That doesn't really matter. I'm just kind of giving you context in case that matters to you. But basically what these three cards are saying is Ryder is basically continue this acceptance of there is a road. Like, you know, you do have to take this somewhere. You can't just sit here in this pain and in this heartache. There are steps that you want to take. You are the type of individual who maybe from the get-go you're like ready to start the healing process, or you know at some point you know that you're gonna get up and dust yourself off and start the road to recovery. Pumpkins is Cross, which is something heavy to bear, something that is recognized as difficult to go through, and Lily is purity, innocence. So basically what I'm getting from these three cards is understand this whole experience, that throughout this whole experience, you have retained a part of yourself that is hopeful, even if you cannot see it now. And even if you feel like, no, my hope is destroyed, then what these cards are saying is you need to understand that you moved in that relationship in hope, in good faith. You did things in accordance to love as you understood love to be, as you understood relationships and expectations. You did good on your part. You are not the wrongdoer in this case. They are. And so if you feel like your hope has been destroyed, please think back on the person that you were before all of this happened, and understand that, like, try to reconnect with that part of yourself by understanding that it's not anything that you did wrong. Like, sometimes people are just fucking assholes. They just fucking suck, and there's nothing that we can do about that. And that's okay. It's not up to us to fix the world. I mean, as much as we all would love to. I mean, not all of us, because, again, some people suck, and that's just not something that they want. But, yeah, like, it wasn't on you. And so that there is merit in being a good person. There is merit in the fact that you did things to the best of your capacity, and that is a hard thing, as you now know. That, yes, it might have made it easier for this individual to get away with things because you didn't know so much, but that's on them. That they abused that about you is something that they did wrong. That you were victimized by these things to whatever degree you were isn't on you. It's nothing that you did wrong. It's that they did it. And that is hard. Again, as you're like seeing that it is hard to be someone who's wanting to do good in a world that it's seemingly a little more committed to not doing that. But that's the cross to bear, is that what are your options here? You're going to stop being a bad person because someone hurt you? You're going to just give up on the hope and your, not only hopes for yourself and romance for yourself, but then like hopes for the world and hope in humanity. Like, you're really going to sacrifice that because an asshole exists and did what they did? And, you know, if it's going to take some time before you get there, take your time. But the point is, don't just let this person win. Don't let this person take that from you. And yes, that is difficult. But again, that's what these cards are saying is like the best thing that you can do for yourself in this road to recovery is to reconnect with that hope, to accept that it is going to take some time, that it has taken some time, that it is going to take some work and effort to get over this and get through this, and to learn from it, and to maybe even to reconnect with that hope if you feel like you're not connected to it. But that there is value to it, that there was value to you entering this relationship as you did, and that as whether you know it yet or not, that there is value to what happened because it can now inform you to, one, what people are capable of, but then also what you're capable of in relationships in terms of recovering from heartbreak. But then also it informs you in like the type of criteria that you're going to hold towards, whoever comes in the future. Like you're going to be paying attention a little bit more closely because you are experiencing the consequences of what happens when you don't give due diligence to the people, to the person, the partner that you're choosing for your life. Yeah. Kind of. I've done this reading once before. I did it last year. I did pile one already. This one now. I'm starting to see that these messages of comfort aren't very comforting, and so that's why I'm starting to incorporate the verbiage of like it being kind of more medicine, where medicine can sometimes be a little harsh. It can be kind of like abrasive, but it's meant to help recovery. And so that's what these messages are more so. It's to help you recover. If like comfort during heartbreak is almost impossible if you're in the throes of it. And so these readings are kind of meant like, okay, what's going to help you actually feel better in the long run? Even if it's not going to be an instant gratification, what's something that we can start like working on in order to end up at a place of relief? And relief will grow as time goes on and you like process this more. Again, you know that if you've kind of at the end of your journey, but I'm speaking obviously to those who are kind of like in the throes of it and at the beginning of these heartaches, like it will not last forever. It will ease. I promise you. I have been where you are at. If you are sobbing and you can like barely function, I've been there, homie. And I promise you, it feels like nothing good will ever touch you again. I promise it will. That's just the harsh reality of nature and living in the world, is that the sun will rise again tomorrow and it will continue to do so regardless of whatever you're feeling. And although it kind of hurts to hear, I promise you that is a good thing. My friend, I really hope that this helped. Even if it doesn't help right now, I hope that this is something that you can keep with you, return to, and that it will eventually help if it doesn't right now. And I hope to catch you at one of my other readings. Godspeed. Bye. Hello, Pile 3, and welcome to your reading on the medicine available for your heartache. Before we begin, I want to break down how the spread is broken in two, where the first half, the first two rows up top, are a way for you to confirm that you're at the right reading. It answers the questions of who you were before this heartbreak, and then the next three cards answer the question of what happened between you and the individual that created the heartache that you're sitting in. And so not only is that a way for you to confirm that you're in the right place, but it's also a way for me to understand the context around which the medicine that's being made available to you today is kind of being given. The next row would then be that message of like that the medicine, the salve, the comfort available to you. And then the last three cards answer the question of what the best thing you can do for your recovery is. So to get started, we have these cards up top. And if it matters to you to know which ones they are, I'm using the divination deck, which uses objects, characters, and locations from cartoons from the last 3 decades or so. And so we have here Chaps and it's a bag of chips, from Steven Universe, Daphne from Scooby-Doo, and Barn, which is also from Steven Universe. And so that two of the cards are coming through from the same universe along with Barn. There's this idea, and because it's answering the question of who you were before the heartbreak, it gives this indication of you belonging to a space that you had been in pretty much your whole life. And then all the cards together give me this idea of you being, I don't want to say caretaker, like it almost gives like older sibling vibes, and I do mean vibes, meaning you didn't necessarily have to be the oldest or necessarily a sibling, but there is this idea of you being someone that the people around you, and very likely those younger than you, were someone that they could rely on. Chaps really gives me this idea, this image of you always having the right thing that someone needs. Like, even if it's just like a tissue, like you see these little kids running around, like your little brother or your little cousin or whatever, and they have like a runny nose or a bloody nose, and you like have a tissue because this is just how things go. You like someone comes and asks you where something is when it's lost because they'll know that you likely know where it is or will help them to look for it. With Barnes specifically, this doesn't necessarily have to be true for all of you. Don't let it negate the rest of the reading if it's not true. There might be this idea of you and the people that you were around surviving something together. And that's going to vary on different degrees, whether the survival is like an abusive family member or maybe like a natural disaster. I don't know. And if not that, then this idea of it's something that you was always like, whether we're talking about family or a tight-knit community, this is something that you know is available to you no matter where you're at. Even if you feel like you're not connected to that now, or if you feel like you no longer have a space there, that's not true. You do. And the rest of the reading kind of confirms that, but I'm getting ahead of myself. To get into what happened between you and this individual. Okay, so earlier how I was saying older sibling vibes and this idea of almost like responsibility over others or just like being relied on. That was supported by these three cards because the three cards that we got were the Eight of Wands, the Four of Cups reversed, and the Three of Swords reversed. And what that says to me is the Eight of Swords being the Eight of Wands being the only card that's upwards feels to me like an overabundance of attraction and feelings for this individual that you felt you couldn't control. And it was just like, maybe there was just an attraction to this person that you just had never felt before. And so it had you move in a way that you weren't comfortable, maybe at first. And then once those feelings were acted upon, you realized you also couldn't control your feelings developing. And so all of that is happening, and that can be very confusing and aggravating, I'm sure. But there is also, with the Three of Swords reversed, particularly, it communicates to me one of two things. Both could be true, but one of these has to be true. Where it was either that you recognized engaging with this particular person would lead to your heartbreak, and you accepted it and you ignored it and you turned a blind eye to it because it was just, you were so attracted to this person. The feelings were there. You were just, it's okay, whatever. It doesn't matter that I'm going to get my hair broken. It doesn't matter that this person's a tool. Like, I'm just going to continue because I like him that much or like them that much. And so it could be that. And if not that, or in addition to that, probably, this idea that engaging with this person would lead to someone else's heartbreak. Whether it was that someone in your friend group, you know that they liked this person, but this person liked you and you liked them. Or maybe this person was with someone else and that's why this felt so wrong. I don't know if it felt wrong to you, like, just because of who you were and who, like, you had this family at home to take care of, or whatever reason, you just felt like this shouldn't be something that you should let yourself have feelings for. And I don't know if that's because you knew that this person wasn't the person to have those things with, or if just that was your way of keeping yourself safe. That's gonna different things can be true for different ones of you that are here. But again, just returning back to that Three of Swords reverse kind of meaning turning a blind eye to heartbreak, whether yours or someone else's, but you having an awareness that the heartbreak would happen, whether for you and or that other person. Or in maybe people, I don't know. So things got messy, basically, to keep it simple. Now, as we continue into, rather, before we continue into the message of comfort, that you should know by now if this is your reading, and if it is, let's continue. And if it's not, there's other piles for you to pick from. And I've done this reading in the past before, so you can check that reading out, and I will continue to do it in the future. So hopefully by the time you watch this, you will have more options to choose from. But for those of us who we know we're at the right place, I want to point out how the first two piles only got 3 cards in this row. As you can see, with the other rows, there's only 3 cards there, and that was the intended structure of the reading as I had seen it in my head before I dove into starting this whole reading, the 3 piles. But as I was putting the cards down for this layer, it really felt right to put 5 instead of 3. And usually I do 3 or 5. That's just the number of cards that I usually do with tarot. 5 just felt right. And so I just, kudos to you for getting these. I also want to point out that not only did you get more cards than the other piles, you are actually the only pile, at least this time around, that actually got a message of comfort. The other 2 felt more like medicine, where, yes, it'll help you to recover, but it might not be so pretty. It might not be as pleasant, because those messages weren't very comforting, but they were helpful. Anyways, we're not talking about them right now. We're talking about you and how you actually did get messages of comfort. But there is also a little bit of bitter medicine for you here at the end, but we'll get to that in a second. I want to point out how you have the 9 of coins and the 10 of coins, pentacles rather. And both of these cards denoting wealth. And then we also have the Sun, which is just the card of bright new beginnings. And so that we have so much positivity overall in this row in the message of comfort for you is that you need to know, even though you don't feel it right now or you don't feel like you have access to it, more will come in time. More in terms of whatever you feel is missing right now. To get into what the individual cards are kind of saying, the 9 of Pentacles denotes to me that you need to, something that can help you feel better is to understand that what you aren't giving this individual anymore and that whole situation is time and energy that you can now place towards yourself. Now, as we're dealing with heartbreak, that is energetic output. To deal and to feel our way through a heartbreak is to expend energy. So if you're in the throes of that heartbreak right now, it's okay that you have to expend more energy towards that and do so as long as feels right, but understand that cannot be a forever thing and that at some point you will have to start to expend your energy where it is needed. That being said, although heartbreak demands energy, it doesn't necessarily have to demand our time. Meaning, when we're in the throes of it, heartbreak does demand both. Because we are feeling so in the dumps that we just stop functioning. It can get to that point, and maybe we call off of work some days. Maybe we don't go to school or whatever it is that we do. Maybe we stop. If we can't stop going to work or stop going to school, then we might stop socializing. Something has to give because the heartbreak is asking so much attention of you. The 9 of Pentacles is saying that start to understand or start to recognize rather how you do have more time on your hands now. I don't know how much time dealing with that situation that we're talking about that led to this heartbreak was taking, but that time, however much time and energy you were expending, that is now energy for you. Eventually, as the heartache eases, the energy, will kind of you'll be able to dispense that energy towards other places, and then you'll start to see how much energy you were putting into this that was better placed elsewhere. That's the promise of the Nine of Pentacles, is that if you plant your resources in the right place, it will reap benefits. I want to skip ahead from the nine, because after the Nine of Pentacles, we have the Three of Pentacles reversed. But I want to skip ahead to the Ten of Pentacles, because it kind of bounces off of what the Nine of Pentacles is talking about, of reaping the benefits of, well-placed resources. The Ten of Pentacles is one of ultimate wealth, and so is the Nine of Pentacles is a card of wealth, period, and then the Ten of Pentacles is one of ultimate wealth. And this is a big part of where I was getting that idea when I first started to deliver the message of more is coming for you. Now, yeah, sure, that could mean financial resources, sure, but for me it comes through more as a resource of time and a resource of energy, but also a resource of love. And here we return to this theme of community, of how in that first row we were talking about this space that you had like either grown up in or you were a staple in that place, and how maybe because of what went on with this individual, like either you were putting all of your time and energy into that, so it like pulled you away from those people, or maybe they like deliberately isolated you from them. I don't know what it was. The point is that you'll come to find that there is love kind of waiting for you where you left it. And if that isn't true, if you know for a fact that you cannot return where you left for whatever reason, know that will find you again. The love and community that you had in that space that you feel like you'll never find again, it will come. You will find it, because you're just the type of individual that fits well in those spaces. You are the type of individual that has a lot to offer in those spaces. And so it will come to you in time. Now, why I wanted to skip ahead over the Three of Pentacles is because I wanted that elaboration of how the Ten of Pentacles is really delivering this message to me and confirming to me that message of community, whether it's one that you can return to or one that you will create in the future, or if not create, then like join in the future. The Three of Pentacles reversed is what was confirming to me this idea of, if it wasn't your heartbreak, then it was someone else's. The Three of Pentacles upwards is a card of communion, of working together to accomplish something. And so reversed, it's that collaborative energy, that community energy being broken. And so the message of comfort here is that okay. It's going to range differently for all of you, and just for some of you, it basically just means that this is just what happens when you make decisions, when you do things that you know are going to hurt someone else. You do run the risk of these things coming to light and that person finding out. And this is just a consequence of that. And that's something that you have to make your peace with. That can be a little bit of a lashing. It might not feel comforting, but if any of your energy is being spent on how can I mend the bridge, it might help to understand that there's no point in mending that bridge, because the other side of that bridge doesn't want to collaborate in the building of it. So you'll only be able to build half a bridge, and that that other individual isn't going to like want to bridge that. So it's just, you don't need to be expending your energy here. Maybe later in some way, shape, or form, you can find an appropriate way to apologize in whatever way you feel might be necessary or appropriate, but now's not the time. Now, if that's not true, then it's and I don't know that you would have the necessary context to see this clearly right now. So you might hear this message and you would be like, no, that's not for me. And then lo and behold, it might be, just because you might not know what was going on behind closed doors with this friend group. Meaning, because part of the message that I'm getting is that if a friend group was broken up, or if you lost access to some type of group because of what happened between you and this person, it was because you kind of needed to exit from that group. Maybe this group was taking too much from you and you were never going to leave because you were comfortable there, or it was just what you knew. And you were never going to leave unless something like this came and pulled you away from it. And so what's true across the board for all of you is that you need to understand why, not why, but rather start to look at what you have gained. And it's not that I'm trying to like spin the loss of this group, because you obviously feel hurt in some way about it. And so I don't want to like invalidate the pain that you're feeling in the loss of it, but try to see if there's something that you don't miss about it, or if you're recognizing any benefits from no longer being around that group. Maybe it's not just the time that you were expending with this individual that is now yours to keep, but it's also maybe the time and resources and energy that you were expending with that group that is now yours to keep because you've been moved away from it. So just kind of try to translate that to your circumstance to see how it kind of fits. The sun here is kind of, like I said earlier, the promise of a bright new beginning, and that is promised to you, yes. The sun is also, as a message of comfort, it's asking you to try to be more aware of just how bright you are, the light that you are in the spaces that you enter. It might not, like, that's gonna range with all of you, where it could be like you just have a natural like bright energy where like any room that you enter is automatically brighter. You might not be aware of that, but like maybe pay attention to the compliments that you get, or the way that people's, if not compliments that you get, but and I was like, what I mean by that, compliments that you get is like, if someone actually tells you like, oh, it's like, if it's so nice when you're here, you might just take that as something like, oh, that's just something nice that people say. But like, that's not something that everybody gets told. That compliment, it's so nice to like see you here, or it's always nice when you're around. There are some people who will never get that compliment because they are rancid, or they're just assholes, or they're just not pleasant to be around. So they'll never get that compliment. So pay attention to the compliments that you get. Don't just brush them off as like people being nice. Like, what are the compliments that you get saying about who you are and the way that people perceive you? And there's something there to be gained. There's something there to like realize about yourself. On another, and if it's not like that like it's every room that you enter, maybe in just like think back to the way that you were reliable to that group that you were in, or like, you know, how valuable that is in an individual. And yeah, maybe if it's true for you that they took a little too much, you know, definitely start to put up some boundaries. Maybe that's what this whole ordeal is about. But regardless of whether or not people like, if they did take advantage, that's their fault. That's not your wrongdoing. Like, you are abundant, and you are like, recognize that like people only take from you because you're abundant. And that might sound horrible. It might sound like, well, should I stop being so abundant? No, actually, like, just to create abundance, like, think of it as a garden. Like a smart gardener has the proper fencing and ways to protect their plants and their vegetation so that it's not eaten by pests. So kind of like that, like, you just have to put up the appropriate boundaries. Like, when you recognize your value, and then bonus, when you recognize how people act around real value when they don't have any of their own, you learn to put up some boundaries. And then when you start to benefit from like proper boundaries, you'll be surprised to find how comfortable you feel, because now this wealth that has been seeped from you is now like yours to dispense at your leisure. All of these beautiful messages, right, that are coming through for you, they're ended and culminated by the Two of Wands reversed. And the Two of Wands reversed is a threshold not crossed through. And what I'm seeing here is that despite all of these beautiful messages, you run the risk of not having access to those blessings, because you might have a tendency to linger or hold on to heartache. And if not heartache, then individuals, like people that you are romantically involved with. Whether this is that you continue to churn it over and over in your head no matter how long it's been, or if you just really have a hard time just not checking in on them and stopping caring about them, and you just don't know how to block them, or whatever the case is, understand what the sun is saying here also. Since the sun is next to this threshold not crossed through, you need to be very careful of the difference between what your ego wants and what's good for you. Because the ego doesn't necessarily care about what's good for you. The ego just wants to win. The ego just wants to be top dog. And so sometimes it feels like being top dog if you're the one who held on the longest, or the one who loved, quote unquote, loved the hardest. And that means you never got over them because you really loved them. And like, who is that a flex to? Like, if that person hasn't chosen you, you're loving someone who doesn't know how to choose you. That is not a flex. So that's the ego keeping you in this space that you have no business being in, despite you understanding at a soul level, at an intuitive level, maybe even at a rational level, that there are better things for you outside of this space and away from this person. But your ego's necessity, desire to win, hold on the longest, whatever it might be, is keeping you from those blessings and benefits. So you need to be very careful that when that threshold comes, you are ready to cross through it. And you do that by making sure that there's no, that you're actually actively making decisions every day, how, like, as minuscule or as large a time scale that you need, whether it's like you like this person so much that it is literally like minute by minute that you have to stop yourself from messaging them or checking in on them, or if it's like you've gotten to a point in your healing where it's just a cyclical thing where maybe once every few months you really come back and you linger on that and you have to stop yourself from messaging them. However, like, long that increment of time is, being present with yourself in those moments to get yourself through it, because you understand at a soul level that this is not what's good for you and that you need to get away from either this individual or those group of people that we were talking about before. Like, there is something that is closed and is over, and when the time comes, be sure that you're ready to put a close to this so that you can move on into the life that's basically being promised to you here. So yeah, just, mind that ego. With the final 3 cards of what the best thing you can do for your recovery right now. With Lily, we have purity. With Tower, we have solitude. And with Rider, we have just going. This is kind of, okay. Lily, I'm kind of getting, keep yourself clean. Whatever that means to you. Whether, if there were like some type of vices involved with this individual, like maybe stay away from, like, keeping clean of this person might also mean keeping clean of the things of anything that they might have brought into your life that you recognize as something you no longer need to hold on to. Maybe they got you into a hobby that's just taking up too much of your time or your money, and it's like, okay, they're no longer a part of my life. This no longer needs to be a part of my life either. Like, Lily is just, keeping yourself and what's yours to yourself, and keeping clean boundaries also. Like, this is mine, this is where I'm at, this is what I'm doing, that's you, that's what you're doing, that's what y'all are at, that's where you're at. That attached to Tower, solitude, like, yeah, just being very, I have to do me and I have to take care of myself. And being okay with that. Even if that might, like, anger some people, or like if you have to say, if you are going to return to that place and it is safe for you to do so, maybe you do so, but like with recognizing that there are going to need to be some boundaries because you no longer have as much to give as you did before. And so returning to this space and being like, hey, like, I'm here, but I can't do as much as I was doing before. And you might not need to give any further explanation than that, but if they do, be honest, or whatever you feel you need to do in order to make sure that your boundaries are upheld. Yeah, Tower, really, really committing to that solitude, and the boundaries, and being by yourself at this time, and taking care of yourself, prioritizing yourself. With Rider being the culmination or the conclusion of these 2 cards, go and do it by yourself. If there are things that you used to do with this individual that you do want to continue to keep on doing, but you feel, or maybe with that friend group or this group or whatever it was that you no longer feel attached to, like if there were things that you did with those people that you feel like, oh, well, I can't do those things anymore because that was something we did together, that's simply not true. You can actually go and do that by yourself. Maybe it might feel weird to take yourself out on dates, go to the movies by yourself, go out to eat by yourself. Maybe like that just feels weird. You can actually do that by yourself. It actually, no one's going to come into that place and arrest you for doing that by yourself. No one's going to do that. No one's going to do that. So Go and do it by yourself. Do things by yourself. Be okay with doing things by yourself. Get comfortable doing things by yourself. Being by yourself. Learn what it means to prioritize yourself above all others. That is the best thing that you can do for your recovery. And this feels like more than just the recovery of this heartache, but like just it feels more of this shift from who you've been in the past to who you're becoming. I'm trying to word this carefully. I don't want to say like the best version of you, but like the elevated version of you, the part of you that your intuition is guiding you to be, is an individual that prioritizes themselves. And understands that you serve others better if you are someone who is called to continue to serve, and to take care of others. You will come to understand that when you are taking care of yourself and you have abundance to give from because you're taking care of yourself, you have more to give others and more to more energy to serve from and with, when you take care of yourself first. So right now, though, is the time for you to learn what it means to take care of yourself and prioritize yourself and gain the benefits of that. So do that. My friend, I really hope that this helped. I hope to catch you at another one of my readings. Yeah, Godspeed. Bye.